Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the armrest as the alarm klaxons blared. Her eyes locked on the view screen where the alien fleet loomed like jagged shadows against the starfield. "Evasive maneuvers now," she barked, her voice cutting through the chaos on the bridge of the UNSS Mercy. Sparks flew from a console nearby, and her second-in-command, Lieutenant Marcus Hale, slammed his fist on the navigation panel, coaxing the ship into a desperate roll. The Mercy's engines thrummed with strain, dodging the first volley of plasma bolts that scorched the void where they'd been seconds before. Elena's mind raced. 3 years of tense diplomacy with the Galactic Council, and now this betrayal. The Council's emissaries had demanded Earth's surrender of its colony worlds, citing overextension as the excuse. But the fleet's sudden attack on the Mercy screamed something far more sinister. "Status report, Hale. What's hitting us?" Hale wiped sweat from his brow, his fingers flying over the flickering holograph. "Shields at 60%, Captain. There's Athari cruisers, Council enforcers. Looks like a full blockade formation, cutting off our jump to Sol." His voice held that steady grit Elena relied on, the kind forged in the asteroid mines of Luna before he joined the fleet. No panic, just facts, even as the ship shuddered from another near miss. Elena nodded sharply, her dark hair sticking to her neck in the rising heat. She was the cautious one, always the diplomat first, but Mercy had its limits and the Council had just found them. Comms hail them. "Open channel." The bridge crew, a tight-knit group of 4, including the wiry engineer Kira Voss in the corner, held their breath. Kira muttered under her breath, patching power from life support to weapons. Practical, no nonsense, her tools already out. The channel crackled open, and a holographic figure materialized. High Arbiter Lyrak of the Council, his tentacled face twisted in what passed for Zathari smugness. "Human vessel Mercy, you are in violation of Accord 47. Surrender your crew and data cores or be neutralized." His words dripped with the arrogance of a species that viewed humanity as upstart primates. Elena's jaw tightened. "Arbiter, this is an act of war. The Accord guarantees safe passage for diplomatic ships. Call off your dogs or Earth will respond in kind." She kept her tone even, buying time, but inside doubt gnawed. Earth's fleet was scattered, colonies vulnerable. The Mercy was alone out here, on the edge of the neutral zone. Lyrak's eyes narrowed, bioluminescent flecks pulsing. "Your Mercy is a facade, Captain. The Council has seen your expansionist logs. This ends now." The hologram flickered as another plasma barrage lit the screens, slamming into the shields with a thunderous jolt. Alarms wailed anew, red lights bathing the bridge in bloody glow. Hale cursed, wrestling the controls. "Shields dropping fast, 40%. We can't take another hit like that." Kira was already at a junction box, sparks dancing as she rerouted energy, her hands steady despite the tilt of the deck. "Give me 2 minutes, Cap. I can boost the emitters, but it'll fry secondary systems." Elena made the call. "Do it. Helm, plot a course for the nebula. It's our only cover." The nebula, a swirling mass of gas and debris 2 light minutes out, could mask their signature, but navigating it blind was suicide. Still, surrender wasn't an option. Not after the Council's envoys had smiled through lies in Geneva, all while plotting this. The Mercy lurched forward, engines screaming as it broke from the fleet's encirclement. Plasma fire chased them, one bolt grazing the hull with a screech of rending metal. Elena felt the vibration in her bones, smelled the acrid burn of overheating circuits. Hale glanced her way, his witty edge surfacing in the tension. "If we make it, drinks on me. If not, I owe you one in hell." She almost smiled. "Focus, Lieutenant. We've got a Council to disappoint." As the nebula's hazy edge filled the view screen, swallowing stars in its ethereal blue, Elena wondered if Earth's grit would be enough, or if this was the line where Mercy truly ended. The Mercy plunged into the nebula's embrace, its hull groaning as tendrils of ionized gas clawed at the shields. Elena gripped the command console, her knuckles white, watching the tactical display flicker with incoming signatures. Council interceptors, sleek and relentless, slicing through the haze like predators scenting blood. "Shields at 60%. Hale reported from navigation, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his brow. He punched in evasive maneuvers, the ship banking hard to starboard. A proximity alarm wailed and another plasma bolt streaked past, close enough to light the bridge in harsh crimson. Elena's mind raced. The nebula was their only shot, a chaotic soup of stellar debris that jammed sensors and disrupted weapons locks. But it was a gamble. One wrong drift, and they'd collide with a rogue asteroid or fry their engines on a plasma surge. "Divert auxiliary power to forward deflectors," she ordered. "We need every scrap of cover." Hale nodded, fingers flying over his panel. "Done. But these council bastards are adapting fast. They're deploying drones. Small ones, hard to spot in this mess." He glanced up, his usual quip absent for once, replaced by a grim focus that mirrored her own caution. The bridge lights dimmed as power rerouted, casting long shadows that danced with each shudder of the hull. A low rumble built in the deck plates, and Elena felt the first real bite of the nebula's fury. Micrometeorites peppered the shields, each impact a tiny hammer blow. She activated the internal comms. Engineering status? No response at first, just static laced with the whine of straining machinery. Then Reyes's voice crackled through, terse and edged with strain. "Holding, Captain. But if we push the engines any harder, we'll melt the coils." The third member of their core crew, Reyes, was the steady hand below decks, cautious to a fault, always weighing risks before flipping a switch. Elena trusted him implicitly. He'd kept the Mercy running through worse than this. "Do what you have to," she replied. "Buy us time." The line went dead and she turned back to Hale. "What's our vector to the inner cloud?" "We can't outrun them forever." Hale traced a holographic path on his screen, the nebula's swirls rendering it a ghostly thread. 10 minutes if we skirt the dense pockets. But there's a gravity well dead ahead. Old pulsar remnant. Could sling us clear or rip us apart. He met her eyes, the weight of the choice hanging between them. No speeches, just the raw press of decision in the red-lit air. Elena leaned forward, studying the display. The Council's lies in Geneva still burned fresh, their envoys promising alliance while arming for conquest. Earth's mercy had bought them nothing but this chase. "Take the well," she said finally. "It's our best shot at shaking them." The ship accelerated, engines howling as they dove toward the pulsing heart of the nebula. Alarms blared anew, drones closing in, their signatures blooming like fireflies in the gas. Hale fired countermeasures, chaff bursts exploding into the void to confuse the hunters. One drone got through, lancing a beam that scorched the port nacelle. The Mercy bucked, lights flickering as secondary systems tripped. "Direct hit," Hale shouted, wrestling the controls. Smoke curled from a console, acrid and sharp, stinging Elena's eyes. She slammed the damage control panel, isolating the breach. "Reyes, we need those coils now." Down in engineering, Reyes cursed under his breath, sweat soaking his jumpsuit as he bypassed safeties. The air hummed with overload, panels sparking like angry stars. He knew the risks, push too hard and the whole drive could cascade into failure. But Elena's voice in his ear was a lifeline. He'd seen her pull them through black hole skirmishes before. With a deep breath, he engaged the overdrive, the ship surging forward on borrowed time. On the bridge, the gravity well loomed, a vortex of warped space that tugged at the hull like invisible hands. The Council drones faltered, their formations scattering in the distortion. Elena held her breath as the Mercy skimmed the edge, gravitational shear buffeting them sideways. For a heartbeat, it seemed they'd thread the needle. Then a Council interceptor burst from the haze, weapons hot. "Incoming lock!" Hale yelled, twisting the ship into a desperate corkscrew. The beam grazed them, shearing off a sensor array in a shower of debris. The bridge tilted wildly, Elena bracing against the console as inertial dampers whined in protest. "Compensate," she barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. Hale did, muscles straining, and the Mercy righted itself, hurtling deeper into the nebula's core. The interceptor veered off, caught in the well's pull, its engines flaring bright before vanishing into the crush. Silence fell, broken only by the ship's labored hum. Hale slumped back, exhaling sharply. "We bought some distance, but shields are down to 20. And Reyes," the comms hissed to life. "Coils are holding, but barely. We've got microfractures. One more hit and we're done." Elena nodded to herself, the taste of ozone lingering on her tongue. The nebula's blue haze pressed in, hiding threats and allies alike. They'd crossed the line into the unknown, but the Council's pursuit echoed in every shadow. Earth's grit had limits, but so did surrender. Elena gripped the console edge as the Mercy shuddered, a low groan rippling through the hull like a warning from deep bones. The nebula's tendrils clawed at the viewport, swirling purples and indigos that distorted every sensor ping into ghosts. "Status on those fractures?" Hale barked from the command chair, his voice cutting through the hum of failing systems. Sweat beaded on his brow, but his hands stayed steady on the controls. Reyes's face flickered on the split screen. Grimy with engine grease, her eyes sharp despite the fatigue. Patching what I can, Captain. Coils are at 60% integrity. If we push thrust, it'll tear us apart from the inside. Elena scanned the readouts, her fingers dancing over the nav panel. The Council's signals were faint now, scattered by the interference but closing in like wolves on a wounded herd. We've got a density pocket ahead, could mask us for a bit. But it's tight, one wrong drift and we're nebula fodder. Hale leaned forward, jaw set. Take it, better than open space with no shields. The ship banked hard, thrusters firing in staccato bursts. Elena felt the G-forces press her into the seat, the straps biting her shoulders. Outside, the haze thickened, particles scraping the hull with a relentless hiss. She plotted the course, weaving through the projected currents, each adjustment a gamble on invisible flows. A proximity alert blared. Something solid loomed in the murk, not gas but wreckage. Elena yanked the yoke, the Mercy twisting just enough to graze past a shattered buoy. Its twisted metal frame vanishing back into the blue. Too close, Hale muttered, wiping his forehead. Reyes, divert power from life support if you have to. We need eyes out there. On it, Reyes replied, her screen showing sparks from a jury-rigged weld. But air's gonna get thin soon. Don't make me regret this. The pocket enveloped them, sensors going blind as the density peaked. Elena held her breath, counting the seconds. In the silence, the ship's pulse felt almost alive, a defiant heartbeat against the void. Then a new blip pierced the static, not Council but erratic, pulsing like a distress call. Hale's eyes narrowed. Could be a trap. Or a lifeline. Elena cross-checked the signature. Human. Old Earth registry. It's faint but real. Bearing 047, maybe 2 clicks out. Alter course, Hale ordered. If it's Council bait, we fight. If not, we don't leave our own behind. The Mercy surged forward, cutting through the haze toward the unknown signal, the weight of pursuit still hot on their exhaust. The Mercy's engines hummed low as it pierced the nebula's outer veil, the distress signal growing sharper in Elena's readouts. She tapped the console, filtering out interference, her fingers steady despite the sweat beading on her brow. Hale gripped the armrests, eyes locked on the forward viewport where swirling gases painted the stars in bruised purples and silvers. Signals stabilizing, Elena said, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Old freighter class. ID matches a colony hauler from Proxima. No transponder active, could be damaged or hiding. Hale nodded once, jaw set. Arm the point defenses. If it's Council playing games, we blow through and keep running. The ship shuddered as a tendril of ionized gas buffeted the hull, sensors flickering for a heartbeat. Elena rerouted power from life support to shields, a calculated risk. Air recyclers whirred slower now, the cabin growing stuffy with the faint tang of ozone. She glanced at Hale, his face etched with the lines of too many close calls. Brave to a fault, but cautious enough to question every shadow. There, Hale pointed, the blip resolving into a hulking silhouette against the nebula's glow. The freighter drifted listless, one flank scorched black. Emergency lights pulsing weakly like a dying firefly. No weapons hot, no interceptors swarming. Just silence. Elena hailed it on all frequencies. This is the Mercy, responding to your distress. State your status. Static crackled back, then a voice, gravelly, laced with exhaustion. Mercy, thank God, Captain Reyes here, SS Vanguard. Engines fried, life support failing. Council's been on us for days. You friendly? Hale leaned into the comm. Human through and through. What's your count? We can't linger. 12 souls, including 3 kids. Took a hit from their drones. Hull breach sealed, but we're venting atmos low. Elena's mind raced, plotting docking vectors. The nebula's density would mask their approach for now, but the Council's hunters weren't far behind. That erratic pursuit signature still nagged at the rear sensors. She patched in a quick scan. The Vanguard's airlocks were intact, but power levels critical. One wrong move, and they'd both be sitting ducks. Docking in 30, she announced, firing thrusters to match velocity. The Mercy closed the gap, magnetic clamps extending with a metallic groan. Hale unstrapped, grabbing his toolkit, always the hands-on type, wiring fixes while others panicked. The airlock cycled, equalizing pressure with a hiss that echoed like a held breath released. Reyes stumbled through first, a wiry man in his 50s, flight suit torn and smudged with grease. Behind him, a cluster of faces, gaunt colonists, wide-eyed children clutching ration packs, all bearing the hollow look of the hunted. We owe you, Reyes said, clasping Hale's forearm. Council ambushed us at the relay point. Said we were harboring dissidents. Took our cargo. Left us for dead. Hale waved it off, already directing people to the Mercy's cramped corridors. Stories later. Elena, get their systems patched. Buy us time. She nodded, slipping past the newcomers to the Vanguard's bridge. Toolkit slung over her shoulder. The console sparked under her touch, fried circuits mocking her efforts. A quick jury rig. Splice the auxiliary power from the Mercy, bypass the damaged relays. Her hands moved with the precision of long practice, sweat dripping onto the panels as the nebula's haze pressed in through the viewports. But as the lights flickered back to life, a new alert blared. Council signatures closing fast, 3 cruisers slicing through the gas like predators scenting blood. Hale's voice crackled over the intercom. They're here. Evac now. Elena sealed the patch, racing back as the groups merged in chaos. A child tripped, spilling tools. Hale scooped her up, barking orders to strap in. The Mercy undocked with a jolt, thrusters flaring to pull away. But the Vanguard's dying hulk served as unwitting bait, drawing the first Council volley. Shields held barely. Elena plotted an escape vector into the nebula's heart, where sensors would fail and the gas could corrode their pursuers' tech. It's thick in there, she warned Hale. We might lose nav for a stretch. Better blind than dead, he replied, eyes fierce. Punch it. The ship dove, the Council's fire blooming harmlessly in their wake. But the cost lingered, a freighter adrift, a dozen lives saved at the edge of oblivion, and the nebula's embrace hiding what fresh hells awaited deeper in. The nebula's tendrils clawed at the Mercy's hull, a swirling haze of ionized gas that painted the view screen in fractured purples and golds. Hale gripped the armrest, his knuckles whitening as the ship shuddered through the first dense pocket. Alarms chirped softly, proximity warnings blind to whatever lurked ahead. Elena, talk to me, he said, voice steady but edged with the grit of a man who'd stared down worse. She hunched over the console, fingers dancing across flickering readouts. Sensors are shot. We're flying by dead reckoning and a prayer. That gas is eating our external arrays. Another minute and we'll be as deaf as a rock. Behind them in the cramped engineering bay, Jax cursed under his breath, wrestling with a sparking panel. The young mechanic wiped sweat from his brow, his wiry frame taut with focus. Shields are holding at 60%, but the corrosion's accelerating. If we don't vent the intake soon, it'll fry the core. Hale nodded, mind racing through options. The nebula wasn't just cover. It was a graveyard for the unwary, laced with debris from ancient battles and volatile plasma storms. They'd bought time escaping the Council's cruisers, but hiding here meant gambling with the unknown. A dozen refugees crammed into the hold below, families from the Vanguard, their faces still pale from the evacuation, depended on him not to turn sanctuary into a tomb. Mark our position with the last nav ping, Hale ordered. Then go dark on emissions. No signals, no trails. Elena complied, her cautious nature shining through in the precise taps. She was the planner, always 3 steps ahead, but the nebula stripped away her maps. Vectors holding, but drift could push us into a hot zone. You sure about this deep dive, Captain? Options are slim, he replied, meeting her gaze. Council's got numbers. We've got grit. We emerge clean, or we don't emerge at all. The ship bucked again, harder this time, as if the nebula itself rebelled. Jax bolted into the bridge, toolkit clanging against his belt. Captain, we've got a hull breach in the lower deck, small but it's pulling in gas. Refugees are sealed in, but if it widens... Hale was on his feet in an instant, brave resolve turning to action. Elena, maintain course. Jax with me. We'll patch it manual. They moved fast through the dim corridors, the air growing thick with a metallic tang. Hale's boots echoed on the grated floor, each step a reminder of the Mercy's age. A relic from Earth's expansion days, patched together with human stubbornness. Jax trailed, muttering about jury rigs, his wit surfacing even now. If this nebula's got teeth, we're offering our backside first. The breach was a jagged tear, no bigger than a fist, but the gas whispered through like smoke from a hidden fire. Hale slapped a sealant patch over it, but the corrosion bubbled the edges almost immediately. Won't hold, he grunted. Jax scanned with a handheld emitter, eyes narrowing. It's the plasma density, eroding alloys we never built for. Standard fix is evac and seal the deck, but that leaves the hold exposed. Hale's jaw set. Evac meant risking the refugees to the upper levels, crowding the bridge and engineering. No, they adapted. Your crazy idea from The Sims, the thermal shunt. Redirect engine heat to cauterize the edges? Jax blinked, then grinned fiercely. Human ingenuity at its finest. Risky, could overload the vents, but beats drifting dead. They worked in tandem, Hale holding the line while Jax rerouted power lines through the bulkhead. Sparks flew, the ship groaning under the strain, but the tear sizzled shut, sealing with a hiss of superheated metal. Sweat stung Hale's eyes as he pulled back, the patch glowing faintly. From the bridge intercom, Elena's voice cut in, tense. Captain, anomaly ahead, wait, no, it's debris, big, adjusting. The Mercy lurched violently, a glancing impact that sent them sprawling. Alarms wailed anew. Hale keyed the comm. Report! Debris field, Elena said, breathless. Nebula hit it till we were on it. Minor damage, but we're tumbling. Jax was already up, hauling Hale to his feet. That was no rock. Felt like wreckage, council probe maybe. Hale's mind sharpened on the threat. The nebula's depths weren't empty. The council must have seeded it with trackers or worse. Their escape had drawn hunters into the haze. Stabilize and scan for signatures, he barked, striding back to the bridge. The cost of the nebula's embrace was mounting, shields dropping, hull integrity compromised, and now pursuit closing in blind. As they righted the ship, a faint blip pierced the sensor fog. Incoming signatures multiple. The Council's mercy had limits, and they'd just tested another. Hale gripped the armrest as the ship shuddered, the inertial dampeners whining under the strain. Alarms blared in staccato bursts, painting the bridge in red strobes. Elena's fingers flew across her console, pulling up tactical overlays that flickered like ghosts in the nebula's interference. 3 signatures confirmed, she said, voice tight. Council interceptors. Fast movers closing from Vector 37. ETA 10 minutes. If we don't burn fuel, we don't have. Jax leaned over the sensor feed, his jaw set like welded steel. They're not probing. That's a kill squad. Shields are at 40%. One hit from those plasma lances and we're vapor. Hale's pulse thrummed in his ears. The nebula had bought them time. A swirling veil of gas and dust that masked their trail from the Council's relentless sweep. But time was a currency they were spending too fast. Earth's Mercy, their battered corvette, wasn't built for dogfights. Smuggler's rig turned refugee hauler. Jury-rigged with human scrap and spite. He scanned the readouts. Debris field ahead. Remnants of some long-forgotten skirmish sharp enough to shred hulls if they plunged in blind. Options? Hale snapped, eyes locking on Jax. The engineer had patched more holes than Hale cared to count, his hands always smelling of ozone and solder. Jax straightened, wiping sweat from his brow. We can't outrun him. Fuel reserves are critical after that tumble. But the debris, it's dense. If we weave through, we might shake pursuit. Risky, though. One wrong turn and we're picking shrapnel out of our teeth. Elena shot him a glare. Risky, that's suicide. Shields won't hold against the field, let alone incoming fire. The ship lurched again, a proximity alert screaming as a chunk of wreckage grazed their flank. Sparks erupted from a panel near Hale's station, acrid smoke curling into the recycled air. He coughed, waving it away, mind racing. The Council had crossed lines before, raiding colonies, stripping worlds bare under the guise of galactic order. But hunting them here, in the void's forgotten corners, meant they'd scented blood. Hale's blood tied to the data core they'd stolen, proof of the Council's experiments on human outposts, twisted biotech that turned settlers into compliant drones. No choice, Hale decided, his voice cutting through the din. Plot a course through the debris. Elena, divert power to forward deflectors. Jax, get me eyes on that field. Active scans if you have to. Elena hesitated, her cautious nature warring with the fire in her eyes. She'd been the navigator since the early runs, always the one plotting safe jumps, but safety was a luxury long gone. Aye, Captain. Course laid in. But if we snag— We won't, Jax interrupted, already hauling open an access hatch to reroute cables. His tools clattered as he worked, sparks flying like defiant stars. I've got an idea. Those interceptors rely on clean sensor locks. Nebula's messing with them. But if we seed the field with chaff, our spare parts maybe, it'll blind them further. Hale nodded, a grim smile cracking his face. Human tricks born of necessity. No elegant alien tech, just grit and whatever they could improvise. Do it. Launch what we can from the cargo bay. Make it look like we're shedding mass in panic. The ship dove, engines roaring as they pierced the debris cloud. Twisted metal loomed in the view screen. Hulks of ancient vessels tangled like the bones of forgotten giants. A low groan echoed through the hull as fragments pinged off the shields, each impact a jolt that rattled Hale's teeth. Elena's hands were steady now, guiding them through the maze with micro-thrusts, her breath coming in measured huffs. Interceptors adjusting, she reported. They're spreading out, trying to flank. Jack sealed the hatch and slid back to his station, initiating the launch. Pods of scrap ejected in a haphazard burst, tumbling into the void like confetti from a mad parade. The sensors lit up with false echoes, a blooming confusion that would force the hunters to second-guess every blip. But the debris fought back. A larger girder whipped across their path, too close. Elena yanked the yoke, but the ship clipped it, metal screeching against metal, a shower of debris battering the hull. Alarms wailed anew, hull integrity dropping to 60%. Hale braced as they spun, the world tilting in a nauseating whirl. "Stabilizing!" Elena yelled, fighting the controls. Jax cursed, diving under his console to patch a flickering power relay. Hale's mind flashed to the stakes. Not just their lives, but the core in the hold, humming with data that could expose the Council to the galaxy. If they lost it here, the experiments continued unchecked. "Hold her steady. We're through the worst." A plasma lance streaked past, close enough to heat the viewport. The lead interceptor had broken through the chaff, its silhouette a predatory shadow against the nebula's glow. Hale's fingers hovered over the weapons panel. Meager railguns, no match for their firepower. But desperation bred invention. "Jax, can we overload a decoy? Make it mimic our signature?" The engineer popped up, face smeared with grease. "Give me 30 seconds. Cargo pod 3, it's got the old fusion cell. It'll burn hot, draw fire like a beacon." Elena banked hard, dodging another shot that scorched the shields. "They're locking on." 5 seconds to impact. Jax slammed the controls. The pod ignited, a brilliant flare erupting amid the debris. A false sun drawing the interceptor's gaze. The enemy vessel fired. The decoy pod bloomed into a furious plasma storm, swallowing the interceptor's barrage whole. Shards of twisted metal spiraled outward, a deadly confetti that forced the enemy ship to veer sharply. Elena gripped the controls, her knuckles white against the worn leather. "It's buying us time, 30 seconds tops. Hale, get those rails singing." Hale's railguns spat defiant bursts, slugs whipping through the void to nick the interceptor's flank. A plume of escaping atmosphere vented from the hit, but the alien craft shrugged it off, its engines flaring as it realigned. "They're shrugging it," Hale growled, sweat beading on his brow. "That pod's fading fast." Jack scrambled back from the engineering console, wiping his hands on his jumpsuit. The grease on his face made him look like a war-painted savage, eyes wild with the thrill of the hack, shields at 40%. "If we push the core harder, we might outrun them to the asteroid belt, but it'll fry the injectors." Elena glanced at the nav screen, the nebula's swirling gases mocking their fragile path. The interceptors, 3 now, the lead one's wingmates closing in, were Council enforcers, sleek predators built for hunts like this. They'd ambushed the freighter Mercy hours ago, demanding the human colonies surrender data. Earth's last stand against the expansionist aliens had painted a target on every ship fleeing the core worlds. No mercy, just cold calculus, assimilate or perish. "Push it," Elena decided, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. She was the cautious one, always calculating odds, but caution had limits. Belt's our only shot. "Jax, reroute auxiliary power." The ship lurched as Jax complied, the deck vibrating underfoot. Alarms wailed, a cascade of red lights painting the bridge in bloody hues. Hale fired again, this time scoring a direct hit on the lead interceptor's sensor array. It flickered, momentarily blind, but the others compensated, their lances slicing closer. 2 minutes to the belt," Elena called, banking into a debris field. Chunks of ancient wreckage, relics from some forgotten war, tumbled past the viewport, forcing her to weave like a thread through a needle's eye. One fragment grazed the hull, a screeching grind that set teeth on edge. Hale leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "They're splitting up. One's flanking low, trying to cut us off." Jax cursed under his breath, fingers flying over patched wiring. "Core's overheating. We've got venting plasma building up in Bay 2. If it breaches—" "Don't say it," Elena snapped, but she knew. A breach meant explosive decompression, the end for anyone not sealed in. The Mercy was a hauler, not a fighter, built for cargo runs, not dogfights. Human grit had kept them alive this long, But the Council's tech was relentless, their pilots bred for this void dance. The lead interceptor recovered, its damaged arrays sparking as it locked on anew. A warning tone pierced the cabin. Incoming ordnance. Elena rolled the ship, the G-forces pinning them to their seats. The missile streaked past, detonating against a drifting rock and showering them with shrapnel that pinged off the shields like hail. Close, Hale muttered, reloading the rails with a mechanical whine. He was the brave one, charging into fire without a second thought. But even he paused now, glancing at Elena. We lose the belt. We're done. The asteroid belt loomed on the scopes, a jagged maze of tumbling stones that could shield or shred them equally. Elena's mind raced, improvise or die. Jax, can we magnetize the cargo grapples? Use the rocks against them? Jax's grin split the grease. Hell yes. Give me the vector. I'll sling a boulder their way. As the ship hurtled forward, Elena plotted the course, her hands a blur. The interceptors closed, their formations tightening like a noose. One lance grazed the Mercy's wing, alarms blaring anew. Shields flickered to 20%. Hale fired a covering volley, buying precious seconds. Do it now! Jax engaged the grapples with a thunderous clank. The nearest asteroid, a house-sized chunk of iron-laced regolith, swung into their wake, propelled by the ship's momentum. It barreled toward the flanking interceptor, a improvised battering ram. The enemy pilot reacted late, thrusters firing in panic. The rock clipped its nose, crumpling armor and sending it spinning into the void. Cheers erupted on the bridge, short, fierce. But Elena's eyes stayed glued to the scopes. Two left and the belt was seconds away. But as they plunged into the gravitational chaos, a new alert screamed. Structural integrity failing. The earlier graze had weakened a strut, and the stresses were tearing it apart. Jax dove under the console, sparks flying from his tools. Hold her together, Elena urged, threading the needle between colliding boulders. The Mercy groaned, a living thing pushed to breaking. One interceptor followed too closely, smashed to scrap by a rogue asteroid. The last one persisted, firing wildly. Hale's rails answered, but ammo was low. Then Jax yelled triumph. Strut patched, barely. But we're venting atmo from the hold. Elena nodded, guiding them deeper. The final interceptor hesitated at the belt's edge, its sensors overwhelmed by the mineral storm. It broke off, retreating to report. Silence fell, broken only by the hum of cooling systems. The Mercy drifted in the shadows of the rocks, battered but breathing. We made it, Hale said, slumping back. For now, Elena thought. Elena wiped sweat from her brow, the cockpit's dim emergency lights casting long shadows across the console. Her fingers danced over the controls, coaxing the Mercy into a stable drift among the tumbling rocks. The ship shuddered once, twice, as if protesting the abuse, but held. Hale unstrapped from his gunnery station, his face smeared with grime, and staggered toward the access hatch. Jax, status on that vent? He called, voice rough from the adrenaline crash. Jax's reply echoed from the engineering bay, muffled by the bulkhead. Patching it now, but it's ugly. Lost half the hold's pressure, supplies are compromised. Food packs are floating like ghosts down there. He grunted, the sound of a welder flaring to life punctuating his words. Elena glanced at the scanners. The asteroid field sprawled out like a graveyard of shattered worlds, dense enough to hide them. But not forever. The Council's retreat meant time, not safety. They needed to push deeper, find a moonlet or a derelict station to regroup. Hale pulled open a locker, rummaging for med kits and spare seals. We can't afford downtime. Elena, plot us a vector. Something with cover but no dead ends. She nodded, her mind racing through the nav charts. The belt's heart lay ahead, a churning maelstrom of ice and ore where old mining rigs from the pre-war era still orbited like forgotten sentinels. Risky, but it beat open space. Got a path, she said, locking it in. Tight squeeze, but it'll mask our signature. The Mercy lurched forward, thrusters firing in short bursts to weave between boulders the size of cities. Jax emerged from the hold, his suit patched with hasty tape, carrying a salvaged crate. Rations are soaked, most of the protein blocks are mush. Water recycler's holding, but we've got maybe 3 days if we stretch it. He set the crate down with a thud, his usual wit dulled by exhaustion. Hale clapped him on the shoulder, a rare gesture. Then we improvise. Seen worse on frontier runs. Tension coiled as they hit the denser cluster. Alarms blared, a proximity warning. Not a rock. Something metallic drifting into their path. Elena banked hard, the ship groaning as inertial dampers strained. On the view screen, a skeletal frame resolved. An ancient prospector drone, its arms frozen mid-grab, trailing debris like a comet's tail. Old tech, Hale muttered, scanning it. Council might have tagged these relics. Could be a trap. Jax leaned in, eyes narrowing. Or a lifeline. That thing's got fusion cells, intact ones. If we snag it, we boost power, seal the vents proper. Elena hesitated, fingers hovering. The drone spun lazily, its solar sails tattered but gleaming. Risky grab in this soup, but they were bleeding resources. Your call, engineer. Make it quick. He suited up again, magnetic boots and tether ready. Hale manned the grapples from the auxiliary station. His hands steady despite the sweat beading on his neck. The Mercy matched velocity, edging closer. Jax launched, jetpack flaring blue against the void. He closed the gap, latching onto the drone's frame with a metallic clang that echoed through the comms. Got purchase. Cells look good. Cutting free now. But as he worked, the drone's ancient sensors stirred. A low hum built and suddenly proximity lights flickered on its hull. It's waking, Elena snapped, throttling back. The field around them lit up. Dozens of similar relics activating, drawn by the Mercy's emissions like moths to flame. Hale fired a warning shot, vaporizing a loose panel. But more closed in, their grabs extending like claws. Council beacons, he growled. They've turned the belt into a net. Jax yanked the cell free, but an arm snagged his tether, reeling him toward a jagged edge. Pulling me! Can't shake! Elena spun the ship, thrusters roaring, but the relics swarmed, bumping hull plates with grinding scrapes. Hale unleashed the rails in controlled bursts, shattering two, but ammo ticked down. The stakes twisted. Not just pursuit, but the belt itself fighting back, awakened by their desperation. With a final heave, Jax severed the tether and jetpacked clear. The cell clutched to his chest. He slammed into the airlock, the door cycling as the Mercy broke free, relics tumbling in their wake. Alarms quieted, but the ship listed a new gash venting sparks. Inside, Jax slumped against the wall, cell humming in his hands. Got it. But we stirred the hive, more coming. Elena straightened, plotting evasion. The cost lingered. Their trail blazed brighter now. The Council's Mercy a fading echo. Jax gripped the humming cell tighter as the Mercy shuddered through the debris field, its engine straining against the pull of a nearby asteroid. Sparks danced from the gash in the hull and the air recyclers whined, pulling in the acrid tang of scorched metal. Elena's fingers flew over the console, plotting a slingshot trajectory around the rock's curve. We're not out yet, she said, voice steady but edged. Scans show a Council frigate inbound, 2 minutes, tops. They must have pinged our exit. Hale slammed a fist on the weapons panel, rerouting power from non-essentials to the thrusters. Let 'em come. We've got the cell. That's our ticket out of this mess. But his eyes flicked to the ammo counter. Down to scraps now. The relics they'd stirred were bad enough. Metallic husks swarming like angry hornets from the belt's hidden crevices. But the Council, that was precision firepower, not blind aggression. Jax pushed off the wall, stowing the cell in a secure locker before clipping into the engineering station. His suit still bore the grit of the relic's innards, and his ribs ached from the jetpack slam. Hives active across the sector. If we don't jam their signals, every probe in range will lock on. He patched into the comms array, fingers dancing over makeshift overrides. Humans didn't build for this endless void war, but they adapted, always had. A quick splice from the cell's power core could boost their jammer, turn the tables. The ship lurched as the first relic clipped their flank, a glancing blow that sent tools skittering across the deck. Alarms blared, red lights pulsing. Elena banked hard, the Mercy groaning as it skimmed the asteroid's pitted surface. Incoming from starboard, 3 relics converging. Frigate's hailing, but I'm ignoring it. Her cautious nature held. No rash dives, just calculated risks. Respond with the bait, Hale growled, his brave streak pushing through fatigue. He activated the external speakers, broadcasting a distorted signal mimicking a relic distress call. It was a long shot. Improvised from scavenged code, but it bought seconds. The swarm hesitated, veering toward the phantom echo instead of their hull. Jack sealed the splice, the jammer humming to life with a surge that lit the cabin blue. That's got it. Signals scrambled for a click radius. But the cell's energy drain hit hard. Consoles flickered and the ship's list worsened. They were bleeding momentum, the asteroid's gravity tugging like an insistent hand. The frigate loomed on the view screen, a sleek Council wedge cutting through the field, its turrets swiveling. A warning shot lanced past, vaporizing a relic in a brilliant flash. Elena's plan crystallized, used the swarm against them. Hold on. I'm threading the needle. She punched the engines, weaving into the thickest cluster of relics. The Mercy bucked, hull screeching as metal grazed metal, but the ploy worked. Relics latched onto the frigate, grinding into its shields with feral determination. Hale whooped, firing a precise rail burst to shatter a pursuer off their tail. That's how you do it, human style. Yet triumph soured fast. The frigate's countermeasures deployed, EMP pulses rippling out and frying half the swarm. One pulse clipped the Mercy, killing the jammer mid-broadcast. Consoles went dark, then rebooted sluggishly. Jax rerouted emergency power, sweat beating under his visor. We're blind. Sensors down. The cost mounted. Without the cell's full charge, repairs would take hours they didn't have. Elena's hand steadied the yoke, guiding them toward a narrow crevasse in the asteroid. Into the shadow. We lose them in the dark. The frigate fired again, beams carving molten scars across the rock face. Debris pelted the hull, and Jax braced as a relic wedged into the gash, its claws scraping inward. Hale grabbed a plasma torch, suiting up on the fly. I'll seal it, buy us time. He cycled the airlock, vanishing into the void. Inside, tension coiled. Elena glanced at Jax. This cell better be worth it. Council's not forgiving crossed lines. Jax nodded, his wit surfacing in the grit. Mercy's limits? We just redrew the map. Hale's voice crackled over comms. Breach sealed, mostly. Get us clear, Elena. The ship dove into the crevice, shadows swallowing them whole. The frigate's lights faded behind, but the hum of the cell reminded them. The hive stirred deeper now, and pursuit was far from over. Jax gripped the console, his knuckles white as the Mercy's edge shuddered through the narrowing crevice. The rock walls scraped along the hull like ancient teeth, grinding away at their fragile lead. Elena's hands danced over the controls, coaxing every ounce of power from the engines, but the hum from the relic cell in the hold grew louder, a pulsating drone that vibrated through the deck plates. Status on that seal, Hale? Jax called into the comm, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his brow. Crackle. Holding, for now. But whatever's in that cell, it's reacting to the rock. Energy spikes like I've never seen. Get us deeper. I think it's masking our signature. Elena shot Jax a glance, her cautious eyes narrowing. Deeper means no turning back. If the hive wakes fully, we're not outrunning it in here. The ship lurched as a tremor rippled through the crevice, loose boulders tumbling in their wake. Jax felt the grit of determination settle in his chest. The Council's frigate might be blind for the moment, but this labyrinth was no sanctuary. It was a gamble, pure human stubbornness against the unknown. Alarms blared suddenly, red lights flashing across the bridge. Proximity alert, Elena snapped, veering hard to port. A massive shape loomed in the scanner feed. Not rock, but something. Organic. A tendril of the hive uncoiling from the shadows ahead. Hale burst back onto the bridge, helmet under his arm, face smeared with sealant. That cell's broadcasting. It's calling them, drawing the damn things right to us. Jax stood, mind racing. No time for retreat. The frigate would pick them up if they surfaced now. Elena, plot a bypass. Hale, rig the cell's output, reverse it, make it repel instead of attract. Hale paused, then nodded, his brave resolve kicking in. Crazy, but it might work. Give me 5 minutes in the hold. As Hale dashed off, the tendril whipped closer, slamming against the viewport with a thunderous crack. Splinters of reinforced glass held, but the impact threw Jax against the bulkhead. Elena wrestled the ship sideways, engines whining in protest. Can't shake it, she gritted out, fingers flying. Jax hauled himself up, spotting a jagged outcrop on the scanner. There, use the rock. Slam us through, clip that thing on the way. She hesitated a beat, then punched the thrusters. The Mercy's edge surged, hull screaming as it sideswiped the tendril. Bioluminescent ichor sprayed across the shields, sizzling on contact, but the appendage severed with a wet snap, thrashing wildly behind them. Deeper they plunged, the crevice widening into a cavernous void lit by faint pulsing veins in the walls, the hive's heart stirring awake. Hale's voice cut through. Reversal holding, but it's draining the cell fast. We get one shot at this. Tension coiled tighter as smaller drones detached from the walls, swarming like angry wasps. Elena weaved through them, lasers firing in controlled bursts, but one latched onto the aft section, claws digging in. They're boarding, Jax said, grabbing a pulse rifle from the rack. Suit up. We fight or we die pinned. Elena sealed her helmet with a click. For Earth's limits? Yeah, we fight. The airlock cycled, and they moved as one, Hale joining from the hold, torch in hand. The breach from the tendril was already widening, alien forms slithering through. Jax fired first, the pulse round vaporizing the lead drone in a flash of blue. But more poured in, relentless. Hale swung the torch, carving a line of fire that forced them back, while Elena picked off stragglers with precise shots. Jax felt the burn in his arms, the acrid smell of scorched chitin filling the corridor. A larger drone lunged, pinning Hale against the wall. Jax dove, slamming his rifle butt into its joint, cracking the exoskeleton. Together they shoved it back into the void, Elena sealing the hatch just as the cell's hum peaked, a reverse wave that rippled out, scattering the swarm in disarray. Panting, they slumped against the bulkhead. The ship steadied, the hive's pursuit faltering in the echo of their improvisation. But the cell flickered now, its power waning, and distant rumbles hinted the Council's lights might pierce the dark again soon. Jax wiped his brow. We bought time, not mercy. Jax gripped the bulkhead as the ship's stabilizers groaned back to life, the faint vibration under his palms a reminder that their patchwork fix wouldn't hold forever. Elena knelt by the power console, her fingers dancing over exposed wiring, coaxing sparks from the dying cell. Hale, nursing a gash on his forearm, scanned the corridor's readouts, his face etched with the kind of focus that came from too many close calls. Cells at 20%, Elena said, voice steady but edged with strain. That reverse wave fried half the relays. We push it harder and it'll blow. Jax nodded, slinging his rifle over his shoulder. The swarm's retreat had left a metallic tang in the air, like ozone after a storm, but he could already hear the distant thrumming, Council reinforcements probing the hull's weak points. They weren't done. The hive mind didn't forget a slight. Then we don't push. We reroute. Hale, what's our vector? Hale tapped the flickering holomap, lines of alien script pulsing erratically. We're drifting toward the nebula's edge. If we angle 15 degrees starboard, we hit a debris field, old wrecks from the last war. Cover, maybe. But the Council's got interceptors inbound, ETA 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Jax's mind raced through the options, the weight of command settling like an old friend. Back on Earth, he'd been just a mechanic, patching rigs in the shipyards. But out here, with the crew counting on him, ingenuity wasn't a choice, it was survival. Elena, can you jury-rig the thrusters off the cell's auxiliary? Make it look like we're limping, draw them in close. She glanced up, eyes narrowing in that calculating way of hers, always 3 steps ahead. Risky. It'll overload the coils, but yeah. Buy us a window. She yanked a panel free, exposing a nest of conduits, and started splicing with a multi-tool, the hiss of connections sealing, punctuating her work. Hale shifted, wincing as he bound his wound with a strip of insulation tape. And if they don't bite? We can't outrun them forever. We don't run, Jax said, the words coming out firmer than he felt. He moved to the viewport, staring into the void where the nebula's gases swirled like bruised clouds. The Council's ships were specks now, but growing, their formation tight and predatory. Humans had faced worse. Plagues, wars, the void itself, and come out swinging. This was no different. We turned their trap into ours. Elena sealed the last splice, the console beeping in reluctant approval. Done. Thrusters at half power. Erratic pattern. They'll think we're crippled. She stood, wiping sweat from her brow, and met Jax's gaze. No words needed. They'd been through enough breaches and boardings to read the plan in a look. The ship lurched as the improvised thrust kicked in, veering toward the debris field. Twisted hulks of forgotten vessels loomed ahead, silent sentinels scarred by plasma burns and asteroid pockmarks. Jax took position at the forward turret, Hale manning the secondary guns, while Elena monitored from the bridge. Interceptors closed, fast. 3 sleek darts cutting through the nebula's haze, their sensors pinging like hungry predators. A warning pulse lit the comms. Council demand for surrender, broadcast in that cold, translated monotone. Jax ignored it, sighting down his scope as the lead ship fired a probing shot, grazing the hull with a shuddering impact. Now, he barked. Elena triggered the feint. A burst of fake distress signals, laced with scrambled human frequencies to mimic a failing core. The interceptors swarmed closer, locking tractors to reel them in. Hale's guns spat suppressing fire, chipping at their eye shields. But the aliens pressed, boarding pods detaching like spores. The first pod latched with a metallic clang, breaching the midsection. Jack sprinted down the corridor, Elena at his flank, Hale covering their rear. Alarms wailed, red lights strobing the walls. Through the hatch, chitinous forms poured in, drones, sleeker than the swarm, armed with energy lances. Jax fired first, a burst that shattered a drone's visor, sending it crumpling. Elena flanked left, her pistol dropping another with a headshot, precise as ever. But they were outnumbered, the Council's elites adapting fast, their lances carving glowing arcs that forced the humans back. Hale took a glancing hit, lance searing his shoulder, dropping him to one knee. "Flank 'em," Jax yelled, diving behind a crate as return fire scorched the deck. He grabbed a loose conduit from the wall, improvised like always, and hurled it into the cluster, sparking a feedback loop that stunned two drones. Elena seized the moment, tossing a grenade from their dwindling stock. It detonated in a flash of EMP, frying electronics and scattering the boarders. They pushed forward, sealing the breach, but Hale's labored breathing echoed in the sudden quiet. Jax helped him up, the man's face pale but grinning through the pain. "Told you it'd work." Elena checked the readouts, her expression tightening. "Pods detached, but we've got structural damage. Debris fields are only shot now, hide and repair." As the ship plunged into the wreckage, shadows swallowing them whole, Jax felt the cell's power dip lower, a final warning. The Council would hunt them to the edge of known space, but they'd make them pay for every inch. Jax gripped the console as the ship shuddered, debris pummeling the hull like a meteor storm. The view screen flickered with alerts, power at 12%, life support straining, and a Council pursuit signature closing fast. Elena's hands flew across the patched controls, rerouting what little energy they had left to the engines. "Hold her steady," she barked, her voice cutting through Hale's ragged coughs from the medbay alcove. He lay strapped in, a makeshift bandage soaking through with blood, but his eyes burned with that stubborn fire. "They're locking weapons," Jack said, scanning the readouts. The Council's hunter-killer drone swarm had reformed, their sleek forms weaving through the wreckage like predators in a reef. One wrong burst and the whole field would collapse on them, crushing the ship into scrap. Hale wheezed a laugh, clutching his side. "Then don't give him a clean shot. Remember that old Earth trick, feint and flank?" Elena shot him a glance, her caution warring with desperation. She was the planner, always double-checking angles, but now her jaw set firm. "Jax, vent the auxiliary tanks. Make it look like we're leaking plasma. Draw them in close." He nodded, fingers hammering the overrides. A hiss echoed through the vents, and the ship belched a plume of ionized gas, blooming like a distress flare in the void. The drones bit, swarming toward the glow, their sensors fooled by the human improvisation. The lead drone fired a probing shot, grazing the hull and shearing off a sensor array. Sparks rained across the bridge, and Jack smelled the acrid bite of melting circuits. "Incoming breach, starboard side!" Alarms wailed as the ship listed, gravity fluctuating. Elena braced against the bulkhead, her mind racing. They'd hidden in this debris field to buy time for repairs, but the Council's tech outmatched them. Adaptive shields, infinite drones. Yet humans didn't fight fair, they adapted. "Get us into the cluster's core," Hale grunted, unstrapping himself despite the pain lancing his ribs. He staggered to the engineering panel, Jax hauling him up. Blood smeared the controls, but Hale's hands were steady, splicing wires with a pocket tool. "Overload the grav plates. Pull in the big chunks, make a barrier." Elena's eyes widened, but she punched in the coordinates. The ship dove deeper, engines whining as Hale triggered the pulse. Massive hulks of wreckage, twisted station remnants and asteroid fragments lurched toward them, drawn by the artificial gravity well. The drones pursued, but the improvised trap snapped shut. Chunks collided in a grinding symphony, pulverizing the frontrunners and tangling the rest in a web of metal and ice. One drone broke through, ramming their flank with a screech of tearing alloy. The impact hurled Jax against the wall, stars exploding in his vision. Elena hauled him back, her face smeared with sweat and grime. "Shields at 5%, Hale now!" Hale slammed the final connection. rerouting the last of their power into a jury-rigged EMP burst from the salvaged drone parts they'd scavenged earlier. The ship glowed, then unleashed a radial shockwave that rippled through the debris. Drones stuttered and went dark, their circuits fried in the human-engineered pulse. The field stabilized, wreckage settling around them like a protective shroud. But the cost hit hard. The engines sputtered to silence and Hale slumped, his breath a wet rattle. "Did we get him?" Elena knelt beside him, checking the vitals, critical but alive. Jack sealed the breach with emergency foam, the acrid fumes stinging his eyes. The pursuit signature faded. The Council had lost them for now in the heart of the graveyard. Structural integrity held at 23%. Repairs possible if they could limp to the nearest neutral port. But Hale's wound needed more than they had aboard, and the galaxy knew their faces now. Fugitives who'd bloodied the Council's nose. As the ship drifted in the quiet aftermath, Elena met Jax's gaze. "We survived. That's the win." Hale managed a weak grin, fist bumping Jax's outstretched hand. They'd crossed the line and the stars bore witness. Voss cursed, slamming countermeasures, flares and decoys blooming in their wake. Thorne steadied himself, voice calm amid chaos. "We're humans, people. We adapt." Voss plot that jump to the asteroid belt. Let the rocks do the work. The pilot nodded, sweat beading on his brow. "Aye, jumping in 10. The Crag cruiser loomed larger, its main guns charging with an ominous hum transmitted through the comms. Another drone struck, shearing a solar array. Power dipped, lights dimming to emergency red. Patel sealed the panel, sparks flying. "Jump ready, coils holding, barely." Voss counted down. 3, 2. The Endurance warped, reality folding around them in a nauseating lurch. They burst into the asteroid belt, tumbling rocks the size of cities drifting in lazy orbits. The pursuing drones scattered, confused by the debris, while the Crag ships hesitated at the edge. Thorne exhaled, the bridge settling into uneasy quiet. Sol's sun gleamed ahead, a promise laced with peril. Home was close, but the fleet would follow. And Earth's defenses? Outnumbered, outgunned. This insult would cost them all. But they'd fight on their terms. Captain Thorne gripped the armrests, eyes locked on the viewport where asteroids loomed like silent guardians. The Endurance's engines thrummed low, weaving through the debris field with calculated precision. "Status on those Crag bastards?" she barked, her voice cutting through the hum of consoles. Voss wiped sweat from his brow, fingers dancing over the tactical display. Holding at the belt's edge. "Drones are probing, but the rocks are scattering their sensors. We've got a window, maybe 20 minutes before they adapt." Patel leaned back from engineering's feed, her face illuminated by flickering holograms. "Shields at 60%. That solar array hit cost us, but I've rerouted power. We push harder, we risk overheating the coils." Thorne nodded, jaw set. The bridge crew, handful of them, veterans all, waited for her call. Earth loomed in their thoughts, a blue marble scarred by a century of alien encroachments. The Crag had tested humanity's patience with blockades, tariffs, outright thefts of colony worlds. 100 slights swallowed for the sake of fragile peace. But this latest raid on the outer mines, that was the line, now with the Endurance carrying proof of their aggression, stolen data cores pulsing in the hold. They were the spark heading home. "Helm, plot us a slingshot path around that big rock, the one designated C-47. Use its gravity to mask our vector." Thorne's order was crisp, born of years plotting escapes in simulations no one else survived. The ship banked sharply, inertial dampeners whining as they skimmed the asteroid's craggy surface. Dust clouds billowed in their wake, a gritty veil that played havoc with pursuing scans. Voss monitored the feeds, his cautious nature shining through in the way he double-checked every blip. "Incoming probe, evasive maneuvers now." Lieutenant Reyes at the con twisted the controls, the Endurance rolling to port. A drone zipped past, its laser grazing the hull with a screech of metal. Alarms blared briefly before Patel silenced them with the override code. "Direct hit would have breached us." "Lucky, Captain." "Luck's for amateurs," Thorne replied, though her grip tightened. She wasn't one for bravado, but the weight of command pressed like the void outside. Her crew knew her as the steady one, brave without recklessness, always 3 steps ahead. Voss, the witty tactician, cracked a half-smile. "If this is luck, I'll take a lifetime supply. But seriously, those data cores, if the Crag board us, we're done." The conversation hung heavy, the tactical chatter underscoring their bind. No grand speeches, just the raw edge of survival. Thorn eyed the nav chart, Sol's system unfolding like a minefield. Earth's orbital defenses were a patchwork. Brave but outmatched against the Crag Armada. One ship couldn't turn the tide, but the evidence they carried could rally the colonies, expose the insults for what they were, preludes to invasion. A new alert pinged, Crag signatures coalescing beyond the belt. "They're forming up," Voss said, voice terse. "Frigates, 3 of them, jumping into flank." Patel's eyes narrowed at her panel. "We can't outrun them straight. Coils need time to cool from the last warp." Thorn's mind raced, sifting options. The asteroids offered cover, but also traps. Collisions that could end them as surely as enemy fire. Then it clicked. A human touch in the machine age. Improvise with what the belt gave. "Reyes, adjust course. We're going to mine that cluster ahead. Detonate a few rocks into a debris storm. Voss prep the point defense lasers for overload shots. Patel vent plasma from the engines to seed the field with chaff." The crew moved like a well-oiled unit. No questions, just execution. Voss's wit surfaced in a mutter. "Turning the belt into a blender? Bold. I like it." As the Endurance dove deeper, the first improvised shot rang out. A laser pulse cracking an asteroid's icy shell, shards exploding outward in a glittering cascade. The ship shuddered through the expanding cloud, sensors going blind in the chaos. Crag frigates hesitated, their formations breaking as debris pinged off hulls. But the gamble bit back. A rogue fragment slammed into their flank, buckling a secondary hull plate. Alarms wailed again, red lights strobing. "Breach in Cargo Bay 3, Patel shouted, already sealing compartments. Air hissed, precious oxygen venting into the black. Thorn stood steadying herself. "Patch it. We hold this line." The cost mounted. Repairs would strain resources, delay their run to Earth. Yet in the viewport, the Crag advance faltered, buying them breath. Voss updated the plot. Sol in range now. Home's waiting, but she's wounded too. The bridge fell quiet, the weight of the 101st insult settling like asteroid dust. They pressed on, humanity's grit the only shield left. Thorn gripped the command rail as the Endurance shuddered through another debris field, the ship's inertial dampeners straining like overtaxed muscles. Voss's fingers flew across the tactical console, plotting a slingshot maneuver around Jupiter's gravity well to shave hours off their approach to Earth. "Crag's signatures on our tail, Captain. 3 frigates, closing fast. They're not shaken off yet." Patel wiped sweat from his brow in the engineering alcove, rerouting power from non-essentials to the thrusters. The breach in Cargo Bay 3 was patched with emergency sealant, but it was a band-aid on a hemorrhage. Atmosphere levels hovered at 70%, and every jolt risked widening the crack. "We've got maybe 20 minutes before they lock weapons. Shields are at 42. Pushing it to engines will drop us to 20. Thorn's jaw tightened, her eyes fixed on the holographic display where Sol burned bright, a beacon scarred by orbital skirmishes. The Crag had hit Earth hard in the opening salvos of this war, their insults escalating from diplomatic slights to full invasion after humanity refused to yield colony rights. 100 barbs from trade embargoes to fleet blockades, and now the 101st, a direct assault on the cradle world. But the Endurance carried the last prototype warp disruptor, a human-engineered nightmare that could unravel Crag hyperdrives across the system. Get it planetside, activate it, and the galaxy's bully would choke on its own arrogance. "Helm, execute the slingshot," Thorn ordered, her voice cutting through the hum of straining systems. Patel, divert auxiliary batteries to point defense. Voss, target their lead ship's engines, make them limp. The ship banked sharply, G-forces pressing them into their stations as Jupiter's massive orb swelled in the viewport, storms swirling like vengeful eyes. Alarms blared. A Crag plasma lance grazed their aft shields, sparks erupting from a console. Voss cursed under his breath, recalibrating. "Direct hit on their wingman!" She's venting plasma. But the Crag weren't fools. The lead frigate adjusted, firing a spread of seeker drones that wove through the debris like predatory fish. One latched onto the Endurance's hull, burrowing with acidic warheads. The deck vibrated violently, lights flickering as secondary systems offline. "Drone breach in Section 4, Patel yelled, slamming a manual override. He dashed from his station, toolkit in hand, sealing bulkheads as corridors pressurized behind him.